Joining me now is Stephen Ratuva from the University of Canterbury. Stephen, it's been quite an extraordinary week for the Pacific with this sort of race by the US and China for influence really breaking out into the open, hasn't it?
Yes, I mean, it's been going on for some time, but only recently in the last few days, it has come out in a very significant way because of the plan by China to sell its regional multilateral agreement, which has been pushed back. And instead, now the island states are signing the bilateral agreement based on specific projects, which is probably the way forward, the way to do it, rather than the original multilateral agreement, which has raised a few eyebrows. And of course, people see it as a kind of future regional security threat.
Well, how do Pacific Island nations view this interest from China, do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, what we've been hearing so far are the narratives from the big powers, China on one hand, and its Belt and Road Initiative, and the Western countries on the other, in particular the United States and Australia and New Zealand. And we really have not heard the voices of the Pacific states. And we're just beginning to come to terms with how they see things. They want to also be engaged in much more diversified diplomatic and economic engagement with China, with Australia, with New Zealand. So they sign, agreements with China at the same time. They still maintain a relationship with Australia and New Zealand. And in the case of Fiji, they signed the Indo-Pacific Economic Agreement to sign on to the Indo-Pacific Economic Agreement at the same time, signed the agreement with China. So it's a matter of diversifying their engagement with all those who are concerned.
Yeah, well, it's all of the sort of, I suppose, worry and consternation. It's a little patronising to these Pacific Island nations. After all, we have a free trade deal with China. We trade with Australia, with the US as well.
Yeah, certainly. That's right. The politics of patronage, or paternalism, some may call it, where Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, they have significant trade relationship with China. In fact, China is one of the biggest trading partner. The small islands, the Pacific Island states, also want to exert their sovereignty, their economic and political independence by signing agreements with China. And so it's a matter of survival for them. They have issues of poverty, they have issues of well-being, of health, of development, the climate crisis, and of course the post-COVID economic revival, all these things together, things that they care for, not so much the bigger geopolitical strategic contestation, but rather their specific national interests.
It is such a fascinating time. Thank you for joining us, Stephen Ratuva.
Yeah, thank you so much.